Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the first episode of the Boyos Discuss for 2022. We're back after a long hiatus to talk about a video game adaptation that I've been hyped for since 2020 when it was announced. We'll be talking about Shenmue the Animation, Episode 1 Thunderclap. You can watch the show in Japanese with English subtitles on the Crunchyroll app or the English dub on Toonami. Before we get into this discussion, I feel like it's worth noting that there are going to be spoilers going forward, so if you haven't seen the episode, then I'd hold off on listening until afterwards. For those of you who are familiar with the game's plot, there are some deviations, so it's possible that you'll still be spoiled, so consider this your warning. So just to sort of give you the lowdown on what Shenmue is, for those of you who don't know, it's a Japanese video game that basically came out in 1999 on the Sega Dreamcast, and it follows a teenager named Ryo Hazuki, who's a martial artist, as he is investigating his father's murder. So the game got a sequel on the Dreamcast in 2001 in Europe and Japan, which they then ported to the original Xbox in 2002 in the United States. So with the exception of a few cameos in other games, like he was in the Sega All-Stars Racing game on the Xbox 360, and a few like weird turn-based RPGs, and some merchandise, like they had first four figures, statue, that sort of thing. There really wasn't anything much on the horizon for the franchise after that second game, until Sony's E3 2015 press conference when they announced a Kickstarter for the third game. So because of how successful that Kickstarter was, it broke a lot of records on that website, Sega finally ended up re-releasing the first two games on modern platforms at the time anyways in 2018. And then the third game followed in 2019, and it had a pretty mixed reception, both from critics and fans. There were quite a few issues with that game, but it was just cool to have, just in general. But that did put the franchise in a bit of a weird place, and a lot of fans, including me, weren't sure if we'd ever see any Shenmue content again. And so that's why when it was announced that there was going to be an anime in 2020, with Crunchyroll and Toonami, it sort of was like a shot in the arm that fans were, excited again about the franchise, so that was pretty cool. So with that monologue out of the way, I'm Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-host Ben, who I'm definitely not forcing to watch this. How's it going?
Hey, good. I wanted to ask, so obviously you are a big Shenmue fan. After the third game, I know we've talked, in between, and you weren't thrilled with how it was, and you're like, wow, nothing happened in this game. You waited how long between 2 and 3?
So I didn't, because I didn't play the game until 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
Because I watched this guy on YouTube, Adam Core, who is a huge Shenmue fan, and I think he's the reason a lot of people started playing the games, because just for years, the better part of a decade, he's been beating the drum for that franchise. And so I was at the time I didn't have a computer that could emulate Dreamcast, and there weren't the re-releases, so I had to find a Dreamcast and then get the game, and then I played that, and then I played the sequel on Xbox. But then the third game, it was probably only 2 or 3 years between that and when the Kickstarter was announced in 2015. And, I was excited because
what's the gap of those games? Even though you didn't play it when it first came out or anything, it's 10 years more?
So it was 2001 is when it came out in Europe
Holy
and Japan.
Shit. So 20?
And then 2019 is when Shenmue 3 came out.
So almost 20 years. And it didn't really push the story forward. I kind of know that. You see Lan Di, who's the big villain, and then nothing happens, and then he gets away, and it's, you're back to square one. I don't know what. What's the state of Shenmue right now? Are there plans for a number 4? Is the community...
So, it's sort of split where, because the third game, some people were expecting the third game to wrap it up, the story.
Yeah.
That was never the intention.
Mm-hmm.
From
Didn't they say they want 7 games or something?
So it started off as 10 games, and then they lowered it to 7, and now the creator is I could do it in 5, and it's
5. Jesus.
But yeah, so it's an interesting thing where because it was a Kickstarter game, it was more for the fans than anything else. Whereas I feel had it just been a normal game development, it'd be okay, we're here to do more of the story and get it out. But this was more I don't know, almost a love letter to the fans and to see if there was any, I guess demand
Obviously,
for the story to continue. Yeah.
Right. So, like, is the next game possibly like that's going to happen in the future? Is that another Kickstarter thing that might have to come forward and be funded, or is it like?
So I think just given how the Kickstarter sort of went, because there were a lot of issues, like there's a lot of drama with it, because what had happened was initially, they have that big reveal at Sony's E3 press conference, and everyone's like, oh, well, Sony's backing it. Like, they're going to be the ones developing it. So why are they doing a Kickstarter? They were only doing, like, the marketing for it.
Okay.
And then other stuff happened along the way, like, it initially was going to be on Steam for the PC release, and then they ended up, like, backtracking on that because Epic gave them money to have it exclusive to the Epic Game Store. And since I'm not a PC gamer, I don't give a shit about that.
Did they do the 1 and 2 on PC also?
Yeah, okay. It came out everywhere. So it was like there were some people, not many, who were sort of irritated by that. I think most Shenmue fans are like console players for the most part.
Yeah, but this just builds the fan base.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, that was something, and then just it got delayed like a few times, which I don't think is a bad thing necessarily, especially...
Kickstarter's scary. Like, anything that comes from that website, it's like, I really hope it's good. Like, I know it can happen. Like, wasn't Shovel Knight, like, fundraised and stuff?
So.
Like, there's good things that come out of it. It's a good platform, but anytime, until it gets released, I'm like, oh,
games are, like, the roughest.
Yeah, what's it gonna be? This is not...
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's an interesting case where it's like, I feel like for fans, it did a lot of the things we wanted. Like, it is, to its detriment, maybe, a Shenmue game. And that just wasn't necessarily what it needed to be. Like, I feel like it needed to be something that had broader appeal, which is something that I think the anime will do a good job of sort of bringing people in on what the story is. Because even starting, like, they had, like, some little cutscene at the beginning of Shenmue 3 that you could play if you were sort of trying to catch up on the story. But I feel like having, more fleshed out, like, 13-episode anime is... probably a better way to do that and sort of get people...
I was thinking, like, is this a good sign for where the franchise is headed in which direction? Like, because now that you're getting more, media released on it, like, there's no Zelda anime, there's no Mario anime. Like, they don't need it, but it's surprising to see a video game get an anime adaptation at all. Is this another, like, crowd-funded kind of thing like Shenmue 3 or fan-backed thing?
So, it's my understanding that it's one of the people at Toonami and Adult Swim who like is a huge Shenmue fan, and he sort of like spearheaded getting this done basically. And he was like, because before it was like he would just sort of be like, yeah, it'd be cool if we did that, but then when he finally like, because I think he's like a producer there or something like that, he really dug his feet in and was like, hey, I want to do this, like, can we do this? And then eventually they got the ball rolling on that. But so yeah, like, this isn't crowdfunded, this is just like a guy at Toonami or Adult Swim just wanted to do it, and
That's
they
cool.
That's awesome. They did it.
Is like the creator of Shenmue, what's his name?
Yu Suzuki.
Is he like involved? Or
yes,
at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they like did creative consulting for it. Which sort of, I'll sort of get into this later. Like, there are some differences as well as some things that we've been told about through like interviews and stuff. Like there's like a martial arts tournament. That's something that Yu Suzuki has talked about in the past, but we've never seen it until now, sort of thing. But was that sort of...
Yeah, I was curious, like, how this kind of came to fruition, and, what's the state of the franchise at this point, because it still seems, like, very odd. Like, Shenmue's, the gameplay is almost as weird as just the development and the, how it comes out and where it's going and what's happening with it. Like, it's such a weird...
We don't have a fourth game confirmed, but, like, the hope... I guess with everyone is that, between this, if the anime does well, the worst case scenario, I think, would be we never get any Shenmue thing. The slightly better one is that we get the story finished as an anime. The best case scenario would be having it finished as a game, but that's sort of a hard sell at this point. So it just really comes down to whether or not this does well, I think. So with that, we will, I guess sort of talk a bit about, like your history with the franchise, because we know I'm a big fan.
That's my history is you. Like, you played Shenmue, and you got really into Shenmue, and you told us all about Shenmue, and we were like, okay, it sounds interesting, like kind of like open world, like you can interact with everything, very kind of like real life sim. That's interesting. And then we played it, and it was like, wow, you can open all the drawers.
That English dub is real rough.
You can pick up oranges and talk to your maid. Well, that's really cool. Time is realistic, and you can just kind of, bum around all day and play arcade games, and then it's 5 PM. But, like, it's impressive. Don't get me wrong. Like, I can look at Shenmue from a distance and be like, wow, it's an incredible feat for gaming. And it's, obviously is kind of the foundation for a lot of the hyper-realistic things we see now and detail and worlds. So I respect it a lot, but I think I tried playing it once, and
because I remember the exact context was like, you were like, okay, if you play Metroid Prime, then I'll play Shenmue. And neither of us were able to beat
no.
the other game.
That's my favorite game, and like, so I picked up Shenmue, and I think I got as far as like, I was training in the parking lot a lot, just throwing punches, because that's how you level up your fight moves, is you just press the button over and over. And it's not just like, you see your progress pretty rapidly. It's pretty fucking slow.
They did slightly improve that in the re-release.
Okay. Well,
so, like, you gain progress faster, but I do agree it's, like, it's a lot.
I think I shopped at Tomato Mart some.
Hell yeah.
Something about sailors or going to a tattoo artist. Like, honestly, I don't think I progressed the story at all. I think I just kind of, like, talked to people, and they were like, oh, this thing. And it wasn't the right time of day, so I just threw punches in a parking lot.
Well, and that's what's so interesting about the first game is, like, it ends, and, you've been hunting Landy this whole time. And then you don't even get to, like, fight him. He's like, yeah, you went to China. So you got to go to China. And it's like, he's like, damn, after all this, I didn't get anything. And it's like,
you have to be like godly patient. I don't know how, like when I play video games, like I'm patient in life. Like, like I'm very easygoing. I don't have stress. Stuff doesn't bother me. I'll deal with a bunch of bullshit at work or whatever. And, I just go, easy come, easy goes life. But when I play video games, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to be in life anymore. I want to, have a good time. Slay some demons or whatever. Yeah. But it's very it's like a list of chores. That's what that game is like. And I respect people that like it. I don't want to shit on Shenmue, but it's like, it's not for me.
And that's fair. And that's my hope, is that the anime will like focus on the more action oriented and like important stuff, like the important plot points, like we'll see as we continue. But with that, we're going to sort of get into a like synopsis, and we'll sort of go through that. We start off with a prologue, which is actually a little different than the game. Like the anime starts off with Shenhua, who's this sort of mysterious character that we'll find out more about later in the as the anime progresses. She's telling this ancient prophecy with Rio in this cave. And there's these basically two enormous mirrors that depict a phoenix and a dragon. And she concludes it with "the saga begins," which is like the thing that they end the first game with. And it's like, is it pretentious?
You could put that on anything ever.
Yeah.
But isn't that the ending to the second game?
The thing in the cave, yes. Yeah. So they're showing you stuff that happens a lot later. And I don't know, it's like, I think the idea is that they want to build like mystery, and it's like, otherwise when you just see dreams of her in the regular game, you're like, well, do they meet? Is she even in the same time period? Because she's wearing like older looking clothes, than Rio.
It makes me curious if the anime would like go to that point. Because then they like to do that, where if you flash back from one moment and then at the end of this
you end or with it in the same.
Oh, now we were back to. I recognize that. That's
the beginning.
That's how the saga began.
From there, though, we're going to the martial arts tournament. I sort of mentioned that this is something we've heard about. Through interviews and stuff like that. Yu Suzuki has talked about. Originally, Rio got the scar at the tournament. Whereas in this, he goes there.
Really?
And, they change things a bit. But, Ine-san and Fuku-san, who are, Ine-san is like his live-in maid, who sort of is like a mother figure since his mom is dead. And then Fuku-san is like a live-in student at the dojo, which is a sort of weird dynamic that I don't fully understand, but they wish him luck, and he goes on his way to that tournament, and his dad gives him this sort of cryptic advice. He's just like, it's not enough. It's not enough. And he's like, I don't know what you mean, Dad.
He's just an anime dad.
Yeah. And it's big sad because in the Japanese version of the game, he's voiced by Segata Sanshiro.
Oh, my man.
But I don't know. I'm not sure if he passed away or if they just decided to get someone else, but it's not him.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Damn. I hope he's okay.
I hope so too.
Where is Segata? Is he safe? Is he all right? Oh, no.
So after that, he goes to that martial arts tournament and he kicks ass. He beats everyone, sort of in one hit. And he basically, he fights the champion from the previous year who, they have these terrifying, shots of his face that are, super zoomed in. It's sort of a weird aesthetic choice.
It's not just zoomed in, it's, up his nose. He's angling his head up, like he's looking down his nose at him, and I get that, but it's the fucking nose is half the screen, and it's, going in his nostril. It's yo, I didn't need that.
Yeah. So, he beats the previous year's champion, and after that, he, is going home, and all of his teammates are like, hey, we need to hang out and celebrate. And he's like, nah, fam, I got some training to do, and Ine-san made me this home-cooked meal, fuck y'all. So, on his way back, he's passing by, basically, the park. It's Sakuragaoka Park, if you've played the game. And he sees that this little kid and Nozomi, who's, the love interest in the first game, getting sort of beat up by Inoki and one of his goons. And Inoki's goon is like, he knocked over his fucking ice cream. He loves ice cream. And then it shows Inoki who's crying.
Yeah, so, it's these two thugs, holding up a girl and a little kid. Obviously I thought it was just they were shaking him down and wanted money. They're like, oh, come up with a reason why we need your money. My ice cream. How are you going to fix this? The man's crying about it. He's a grown thug. He's in the mafia and he's crying about his ice cream. I felt bad. I was like, oh shit, they're not even trying to just hustle. He just really wanted that ice cream, man. Give him some money for that.
But so, they're trying to beat up on Nozomi and that little kid, and Ryo fucking one-handed beats the shit out of them. Because with one hand, he's holding onto his backpack. The other hand, he fucking knocks the one guy out and then flips over Inoki, who's a big old boy. Inoki's a big boy. So he does that when Nozomi is clearly like, oh, Ryo-san.
I mean, I would be too.
I mean, yeah. And he gives her his handkerchief because she had fallen on the ground. He's like, hey, clean yourself up. And then he goes on his way. We see, I think before that, actually, we see the car that Landi is in driving towards the dojo. They're going real fast through the neighborhood. So after that, Ryo, we're back to the basically beginning of the game, because all the stuff before now was never anything that we had seen, technically. It was stuff that we had, heard about. But now we're at the point where the game itself begins. And it's Ryo heading back home to the dojo, and he sees a mysterious black car parked in the front. He opens the door. Ine-san is on the ground, and she warns Ryo that his father's in trouble inside the dojo. So he goes towards the dojo. Fuku-san gets thrown out, and he enters the dojo after that, and we see a mysterious man named Landi who's fighting Ryo's father. And Landi demands this mirror, which, even to this day, we don't really know what it does.
Yeah, what?
We just know that there are two of them,
okay.
But we'll get to that. So he's demanding the mirror, and Iwao is Ryo's father. He's not going to give it to him, he's just refusing. So after that, Ryo's dad is on the ground, and Ryo tries to fight Landi, but he just knocks him on his ass immediately. So earlier in the basically show, we've sort of established that Ryo is a pretty good martial artist. So for Landi to fucking knock him to the ground in one hit.
Ryo's in his normal world, no one stands a chance against him. He just he just barely, without effort, wrecked two thugs and won his martial arts tournament in a single punch. Like, it was like, God damn, he's starting here, so he's pretty strong.
Yeah. So from there, Lan Di is threatening basically to kill Rio. He's like, hey, if you don't give me the mirror, I'm gonna fucking kill your son. And that's what it takes to get a WoW to be like, okay, it's buried outside under the cherry blossom tree. Go get it and don't kill my son, please. So his Lan Di's goons go out and get the mirror. And as they're doing that, Lan Di reveals that Rio's father killed a man called Zhao Sunming. And that's a more significant thing later on. We don't fully know all the details yet, but we know that basically that's Lan Di's father. So there's sort of this like cycle of revenge that's getting started in a way because, Lan Di wants to kill a WoW because he killed his dad, and Rio's going to want to get vengeance on him. So after that, basically Lan Di's like, okay, I'll allow you to die a warrior's death, so get up a WoW, and I'll let you at least have that. And he fucking deals the death blow, and then after that they leave, and Rio sort of, is like, what the hell, Dad? Like, you're going to be fine. It didn't look that bad.
I always thought that. I always thought it was just like, he like double palm punches him in the chest.
Yeah.
And it's like, what, did that fucking blow up your heart? Like, what happened?
He's old, I guess.
There's a lot of, like, dust that flew off his chest, but I mean, it seemed, I don't know, man.
Yeah. His dad is dying.
Okay.
This is his dying words. He says, keep friends, those you love, close to you. And then we get the classic sort of like death in an anime or any big piece of media ever where it's like, no, father, no!
It zooms out and pans up
yeah,
in the thunderstorm.
Yeah, the snow turns to rain. That's a very significant thing. The day the snow turned to rain in the game. That's what they call it.
Do you mean the day it got hotter?
That's not... So after that, we get that death scene. A few days have passed, or weeks. It's not really clear. In the game, a lot of time passes. Like a week and a half or 2 weeks passes, because Rio, when he gets hit, it knocks him on his ass for a while. So he's like recovering. Whereas in this, it's like a few days or a little bit of time has passed. We don't really get that sort of, I guess, idea that he's, perhaps been injured a lot more.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like a normal shonen where they would, like, spend 10 episodes with him in bed, like, trying to get better, Like,
yeah.
It was very rapid fire. And there's more that happens throughout the episode, but it's very, like, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really have a sense of time that was passing. It was just, like, the next day he's out with talking to people. I didn't know.
They do weird things where it's, like, I don't know if they're wanting you to, like, pay closer attention to like certain details. Like they show like different calendars. Like in Tom's hot dog truck, there's a calendar on the wall that they sort of are like zoomed in on, and it's like November. And then in the dojo, in the scene we're about to sort of talk about, it shows that it's December, but it doesn't specify like...
It's cool, like the anime starts with like a very, like, it's a thing I've seen in Shenmue a lot, where you start the day and it's like, here's the date, here's the year, the month, the day, the time.
It's the same as the loading screens.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And if they did that more, it would probably help with us understanding the time frame.
Yeah.
But they only do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a good way to kind of break up, like go to commercial, come back from commercial with that.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that would make sense, yeah. But we have these like basically cops or detectives, whatever you want to call them, who are at the dojo, and they're, talking with Ine-san and Fuku-san, who they give all the basically paperwork, like, here's everyone that WoW ever associated with, like, good luck finding the killer. And Rio is like, they're not going to find shit. Like, none of us knew who this guy was, so why would that be in like that paperwork, And so they're like, well, we should just let the cops handle it. They're probably good people, and so, but Rio's not having any of it. He sort of is making it clear that he wants to investigate it himself. So he's walking through town. We get a weird sort of like thing where he's at a park and he's looking at like a father and his son on a swing set, and he's like, my dad's dead.
Yeah, like that would have been a good moment if he didn't die like 2 minutes earlier. It's like, yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's something if we had it a few episodes later.
Right.
It would have made more sense.
Remind us of what we've lost and why we're fighting.
Exactly.
Not
2 episodes.
It was kind of goofy.
Not, 10 minutes in.
It was goofy.
Yeah. But he's walking around town, and Nozomi shows up, and she's sort of talking to Ryo. She wants to cheer him up. Clearly, they have a thing going on, and he actually laughs at something that happens.
Even I noticed that shit didn't happen in the games. I was like, did Ryo just laugh? What the fuck?
Yeah, so it sort of was, I don't know, and my hope is that we'll see more of that in the anime, because that's something that has been criticized about the games a lot, is that he's sort of, a stoic,
yeah, that's a
character.
Word.
I mean,
he's like a stoic, like a brick wall.
Yeah. So my hope is that we'll see more of that, especially with some of the characters we'll maybe be meeting later on. So they're like, okay, we'll go get a hot dog, that'll cheer you up or whatever. They go, and Tom is like, can't do it, man. I can't give you a hot dog because this fucking black fancy car that definitely was here on the day that your dad was murdered sideswiped my hot dog truck. So that's a detail.
And then his faux girlfriend is like, they splashed mud on me too. So I guess Landy's just going around being a fucking prick to everybody.
No, all this stuff is stuff you would optionally sort of find out about based on who you talk to. So it's like they do it differently in this, where like Nozomi is sort of along the way with him doing investigative stuff. Or like, she just happens to be there sort of and being like, yeah, that happened to me. But in the game, it's like, depending on who you talk to, like, you could talk to Tom immediately, and he'd be like, yeah, they, fucking flew by and, like, almost killed me. Because in the game, he just almost gets ran over. That's the thing. And then, like, the other guy, like, the old dude that Ryo's dad was talking to at the beginning, he knocked him over, like, on the way, sort of thing, and he hurt his back. The cat in Shenmue, the kitten's mom, got ran over by the car.
What does that lead to? You just talk to people and they're like, Landy's a dick. And that's it?
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, like they're like, because what happens in the game is like, you talk to Tom and initially he's like, I don't really know. I just saw the black car. That's it. He's like, go talk to like other people and see, sort of thing. But everyone points you back to Tom because they're like, yeah, he exchanged words with the driver of the car. Or whatever. And so then you go back to Tom and you're like, hey, what the fuck, dude? Like, they said you talked to him. Who is this guy? And he's like, okay, like, I'll tell you a bit more. And then from there, that's when you then would have gone to the ramen shop in this game.
Okay.
And so in the anime, though, Tom is just like, yeah, I can't feed you. You should get ramen instead. And so Ryo and Nozomi just go to get ramen, and they're just talking. Ryo is like deep in thought about Landi. He's like, I can't stop thinking about that guy, And there's just this random dude who, it's more like, I don't know, because like you actively are seeking out the guy in the game that you talk to who reveals that Landi might be involved with the mafia. But in the anime, he's just like, I overheard, he's like, that Landi name, that could be someone who's in the mafia. And it's like, what? It's a weird leap in logic, but which I don't know, like maybe that's like a thing, like calling someone the Dawn, like I don't know if Landi or something like that. It's like, I don't know.
His design is very on the nose. I was thinking about it. He's like he's after the dragon mirror, and they keep reading you this prophecy of like a dragon will come from the earth to gobble the souls of everyone, and his like green robe has like dragons all over it. It's like, wow, what's the symbolism here? Is he the one that's evil? Do you get it? It's like, yes, yep, got it.
But is he really evil though? We'll find out.
They really want you to think he's
in
evil.
Shenmue 4.
Yeah, that'd be a good twist. Ryo's the dragon and Landi's the phoenix.
He does get betrayed. Landi gets betrayed by one of his like accomplices at the end of Shenmue 3. But that's something we'll get to later. Maybe if they do season 2. So after that, he's like, hey, he's in the mafia. You should steer clear of him. And that sort of just ends that line of investigation. So after that, actually, I think this scene happened earlier. I got things a little mixed up because I typed this synopsis sort of before I had watched it. an additional time. But Londi is sort of talking to a goon, and he reveals that there's another mirror. And on the rooftop nearby, you got Smeagol, who is just Chai in this game. He overheard that conversation, and he has a fucking hard-on for joining Londi and his crew. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to fucking get this mirror so that way I can join the Chiyu men.
Why is this guy... So, like, Ryu's in this nowhere town, Yokosuka in Japan.
Yeah.
Why is this guy there? Is he
Londi
following...
or Chai?
No, Chai. Like, is Chai following Londi around?
Yes, I think
he was, like, from China, and then he, like, followed them.
That's the idea,
came to Japan.
Is that, like, he thinks, gaining influence with Londi will get him a spot in the Chiyu men, which is, like, a big, sort of... We don't know much about it, but it's like a crime syndicate of some kind, sort of thing.
The chow mein, I got you. That's fucking... No, that's dedication, though, to come from...
another country.
Yeah, just for nothing. To be like, what if Londi was just visiting his mom?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, damn it, I came all this way. Fuck.
But, so he's, gonna head to the dojo, because he's like, hey, that's where they got that first mirror. Maybe they know something else about where the second one is. And this is the weirdest part, in my opinion, of the anime, because it deviates the most from the game. So Chai goes to the dojo and fights Ryo there. And at first, Ryo isn't really able to hold his own. He's like, damn, he's stronger than I am. Like, I can't beat this guy. But then he sort of remembers his father's teachings, and he finally is able to understand what he meant. And he's like, yeah, I just need to fucking, follow their movements and be a step ahead of them. And
it's very anime.
It is very anime. So he's able to beat Chai, ? Like,
I would say so.
He knocks him out of the dojo, but then they're like, yeah, he ran away because we showed up. And it's like...
No, he whipped his ass.
I mean, yeah, but it's like, my problem with that is, like, we're not able to then build him as, like, I don't know, the big bad that you're gonna fight at the end of the Yokosuka.
Yeah,
part
like I from watching Matthew, I knew that he's like the final boss of the first game. So we're still talking about the first episode of this anime.
Yeah,
and he just whooped the final boss's ass.
One thing I really would have liked to see, and it's like, it may still happen, I don't know, like, we're still only in the first episode, but in the game, you fight Chai on 2 occasions. You fight him once in the arcade, and that is the hardest fight in the game, because, like, the difficulty is cranked up, you're meant to lose that fight, and then, like, Ryo gets knocked out for a few days, and he has to recover, but if you beat him, it's, like, it's really hard, but you're like, oh shit, like, I fucking beat Chai once, so I'll be able to beat him again. But, I don't know, just for him to be able to beat him this early on, it's just sort of like, I don't know. It
feels like they are trying to get far in this anime. Like, it feels like they don't have time to have him get his ass beat and have him train and have him develop.
Yeah.
It seems like they really just want to get through the story beats and try to see as far as they can get with the story. Which I would like to see them go pretty far with it, but, I also would, like, it's better storytelling to pace it out.
Yeah, it gives him opportunity to, like, grow in the longer term by having him lose. Like, I think if he had lost this fight and sort of been like, damn, like, I fucking suck.
Like you said, we should have, like, this episode should have ended with his father's death, and then I feel like the next episode, like, if we could pace this out like we want to, with all the time in the world, the second episode could be him bedridden from Londi just, like, really hurting him.
Yeah.
Because Londi didn't really hold back. He just didn't kill him like he killed his father. Like, it looked like he deliberately tried to kill his father.
Yeah.
But, he's bedridden. He's thinking about his dad. He's all upset. Like, he's more emotional. You get, like, more character development if he was able to recover from that fight. Instead, like, stuff like that would be better for the overall characters in the anime. But if you're just trying to do the storyboards, then I guess just fucking have them beat all the final bosses every episode.
Well, like, my thing is, I wonder if, like, the thing is they want to focus more on, like, action. Because, like, I think that's sort of the vibe I'm getting is, like, because Shenmue, there are big action set pieces, but they are few and far between. Like, you don't fight someone in the game until, like there's a limited, like, fight scene that's, like, optional. I can't even remember what, like, the first free battle that you're able to do is, but it sure as hell is not, like, this early on, you know? Like, it's something that, you know, I don't know, like, maybe to the game's detriment, it focuses more on, like, the mundane. But
they're playing a dangerous game with making Ryo just a complete Mary Sue that can just win everything no matter what, and is just a knight in white armor, and is a gentleman and always has his handkerchief on hand to hand out to the fair maidens. But wins every fight because he's just so fucking badass.
Well, and see, and that's the other thing I sort of like about the game is, like, ladies like him, but he does not know how to, like, reciprocate that. Or, like, he just doesn't have any interest in it, you know? Whereas it's, like, in this, so far anyways, it's, like, you're right, he is sort of like a... Ladies, you know, like, he's laughing at what she's saying. You know, like, they have good...
Women are taking him out. He fucking whoops ass.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's... We'll see how things go. Obviously, first episode. We'll see how things go from here. But, so he knocks Chai out of the dojo. And, you know, basically Fukusan and Ine-san show up. And they're like, yeah, he ran off after we showed up. It's like, is that why he ran off, though? It's like, Fukusan, your ego, man. Like, that ain't it. But yeah, they show up, and, you know, Ryo finally is, like, vowing to avenge his father's death, you know, and find out whether or not he murdered someone, because that's a pretty significant thing that we haven't really gotten closure on yet in the games. And I doubt we'll get that in the anime, but, you know, from there, Ine-san reveals that she had hidden this letter from Ryo after his father died, like the day, I think, or the day after his father died, this letter showed up to the dojo, you know, addressed to his dad from a man named Yandazu, and, you know, she's like, I don't know what this is, but I wanted to keep it from you because I thought, you know, I don't want you getting into trouble, but here it is now. And that sort of is, like, the starting point for, you know, basically going forward what we're gonna sort of get. But yeah, we're done with the synopsis. We cue the credits and we get some anime music, which I actually sort of liked.
I didn't pay attention really. They did play the anime music a lot, or not the Shenmue music a lot. They're like da 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 da.
And I think that's important because, like, if you didn't, like, already they're making deviations from, like, the normal sort of, like, plot. So I think without the music, that is really something that fans would have been like, you know...
I think we're getting closer to an age where people have finally realized that if you're more faithful to what you're representing, you will get better reviews. Like, in the age of Disney, Marvel movies, and Star Wars shows, you know, when you give fans what they want, they like that. It's weird that we've had to come this far for them to learn this. But it seems like that's happening in this show, so that's nice to see. There's homages, you know, they're pacing, like, they you know. But,
so, yeah, with that, you know, what were your sort of overall thoughts on the episode? You know?
Well, I, as not as big of a fan, I asked you to help me decipher which is the better version to watch between the dub and the sub. Luckily, you told me the sub is way better, which is pretty fitting for Shenmue in general, I have to say.
Because just for context, I watched both the sub and the dub, because I had it, like, DVR'd on Toonami. And, like, I appreciate what they were going for with the English dub, like, getting more, like, you know, American, you know, voice actors who do anime traditionally, instead of, like, the game cast who are very, like, you need to be in that mindset, or, like, know of the reputation, I guess, of the games, and, like, what they're supposed to, or what they have sounded like, you know. And so, like, I totally get why they did it. I don't think it was the right decision. And, like, I had hope going in. I was like, yeah, they're doing, like, you know, anime actors. Like, it could be, you know, that this is, like, a good decision. But in the end, I ended up watching the Japanese dub afterwards. And it's just, a lot better because they have the same voice actor from the Japanese cast of the game playing Rio, and I think Londi as well? Question mark. So it's like, we have that sort of cohesive thing, and like at this point, just with the amount of time that's passed, the actor Masaya Matsukaze, who plays Rio in the Japanese dub, he has the character down to like a T. Like he absolutely nails it. Like it's not, like I that's the sort of voice you would picture Rio
I was
having.
impressed with the voice work. It was good. In the sub.
yeah, obviously.
I watched the sub.
Yeah.
I can read, so that's what I did. The only one who's like over the top and should be is, Chai.
Yeah, because he's Smeagol.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So I mean he's all of it sounded faithful. The music was, I really only noticed the Shenmue song. Like every other song just kind of...
Yeah, that's the original music, like, that is new to the anime. It wasn't very memorable.
Didn't stand out, yeah. The animation, it looked good. Like, it's not...
The fights looked good. I feel like the other stuff, like, when it's just Rio and, like, Nozomi talking... There's a lot of, like, stationary characters in the background. Yeah,
there's a lot. Stationary, even, like, the people in frame that are being highlighted, like, a lot of parts of them aren't moving or anything. Which, I understand, this animation trick to not have to, work as hard and take longer making these
lots
episodes.
Of, like, pan-ups where it's, like, they're not moving, but they're giving the illusion.
Reshoot, like, they use the same... angle and same...
Yeah, they did for that guy with the big nose at the tournament. They used that same shot.
So that's probably going to keep happening. It reminded me of the Castlevania animation style a little bit. Like the characters, they look...
I feel like that had a bigger budget though.
Definitely. Castlevania is definitely higher budget.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see, like, with Castlevania existing as a video game... Adaptation, animation... anime, whatever. Yeah. Like this, I can see why they would draw inspiration from that, make it similar in style. But I couldn't help but think that the characters looked like they came out of that anime a little bit.
Yeah. And I get that for sure, yeah. So sort of after that, there were some differences I've sort of alluded to. Like there's one thing that we didn't mention, which is the fight with Rio and Inoki. That's something that happens like later in the game than it does in the anime, but weirdly enough, there's like a bonus disc to Shenmue 2, which is Shenmue the movie, which is just a collection of cutscenes from the first game.
Oh look, did they put the colon in Shenmue the movie?
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, wow, they didn't do that with the it's literally just called like Shenmue the animation, like there's no spacing or anything.
But they in the movie on DVD, they had that scene with Inoki at the beginning before the basically beginning cutscene where Rio goes to the dojo. So it's sort of interesting that they took that cue from the movie, or the movie in quotes, because it's not really a movie. And so that's just sort of something interesting that I noticed about that. And so the other thing is, like, the detectives and the police, they're never really in the game, like, at least as far as, like, anything significant. Like, you can call them. Like, if you open your little memo book, there's, like, a list of, like, like the weather service that you can call, and they'll be like, here's the forecast for the day. You can call the cops, and Rio is just like, yeah, I don't really think that I should get them involved. And he just hangs up immediately. Like, you dial it.
Why would cops be involved in investigating your father's murder?
Fuck the cops.
What the fuck?
So then the other thing is, like, Tom sort of, and I mentioned this a bit, and maybe this is just, like, because they didn't want to seem racist. In the game, he's like, Tom is like, this guy, he's wearing a Chinese getup. You should ask Chinese people about Chinese things. And it's like, oh, so you're just...
That's good advice, though. If I needed to ask somebody about Chinese things, I would prefer a Chinese person.
You're blanketly saying, like, they're all murderers and thugs. Go talk to them.
I think you're saying that. I didn't hear Tom say that.
Have you
Tom's
played the game?
No, I haven't played the game.
Tom's a good guy.
Tom's the goat.
All right, so, with that, how do you think, just based on your limited experience, how do you think they've handled the adaptation so far?
It's fine, like, I want to watch more episodes, because if I really had to be brutally honest, and I don't have experience with Shenmue, it didn't grip me. It just seemed very much like a like a formulaic, my father's been murdered and I'm going to avenge him because I am Anime the character. And it's, it's very typical. That said, it didn't offend me, I wasn't like, ugh, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, if it's on, then I'll leave it on. I'd be interested enough to just not press a button to go back.
Yeah.
But
and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah.
Just to
I
get
think
more
if you're
people
mildly interested in Shenmue, you'd be happy with this anime. If we're trying to compare it to My Hero or, the upcoming Attack on Titan, Chainsaw Man, it's hard to compete with the heavy hitters. But for just it's like low budget Castlevania for an adaptation. It's like, I could see that. If you enjoyed learning about the franchises or learning about the lore and why people care about this franchise at all, why there's a fandom for it, I think you would be interested in watching this anime. I have nothing too bad to say about it.
Yeah, and that's sort of like, I don't know, my biggest thing with this is I just want it to be as big as it can be, to get more people interested, to, get to the point where we're like, maybe there is a market for a fourth game, with a bigger budget than a fucking Kickstarter. That would be the ideal sort of scenario. But I guess, are there any other final thoughts that you want to sort of get out before we wrap this up? Or
it seems safe, like it's a safe way to introduce people to the IP, and I don't see it not being safe and not really taking big risks outside of the games. And making Ryu a more complex character. I don't see that happening, if I'm being honest. I'd be very pleasantly surprised. And if they did, things outside of the scope of the games, it would obviously have to be good. It shouldn't just be the director or creator just stroking his ego and being like, let's do this thing because I want to. And it just has no purpose. But I would be happy to see it get more exposure and more... It's one of the things that made the game so hard to get into is the voice acting. So if it's so bad.
Yeah.
So if this turns out well, then it's a nice way for people to get past that and not have to experience it.
Because that's always anytime I talk to anyone about Shenmue, that's obviously what they talk about.
What was the line? You said it today.
There's a line in the second game. Ryo's like, do you know where I could go to participate in a street fight? And it's said in that exact inflection. And it's like, I love it. And it's like, for fans of the game, we love it. We're used to it. That's just part of, that cheesy sort of, games didn't used to have good English dubs. Especially Japanese games. You go back to, especially Sega games. Any arcade game they ever did in the 90s. It's the fucking House of the Dead type shit where it's it's not good.
Dogs of the MSG or whatever the fuck.
Goodbye, friends. But it's just something that we're used to, but a lot of people that's a sticking point, and so I agree. My hope is that that'll sort of get that stigma, okay, that's we can do it different.
I do have to admit, a lot of stupid sounding stuff in English sounds a lot better subbed. And you read it and you're like, yeah, that's not anything. But
they say noob at one point in this, and I'm like, that's a weird thing. That seems sort of modern.
One of the wrestlers is like, we heard about your high school. What is it called? Dweeb High? But I had to read it, and they were saying it in Japanese. So I was like,
So it's I don't know how cheesy the Japanese act
sounds
is.
good.
There you go. Yeah. So I guess that's going to do it for today's episode of the Boyos Discuss. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be continuing our review of Shenmue the animation, so stay tuned for another episode. Until next time.
Do you know where the sailors hang out around here?